embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Good morning. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. It is the 20th day of November. We are careening recklessly towards the Thanksgiving holiday celebration. We are going to be with you all week long. Heck, who knows? Might even do the program live Thanksgiving morning. I mean, there's no way to tell. I mean, it just depends on what kind of a mood that we're in on that particular day. And the fact that this microphone is located about, 25 feet from my bed is, hey, why not? A lot to talk about today. We've got university staff told not to use all capital letters. A judge bars the United States from enforcing the Trump administration's asylum ban. We've got murder and deceit in the saga of Casey Kasem. A new challenge. It's the turkey challenge. Yeah, the White House Correspondents Association has decided to axe a certain segment from that particular event. Also, Mayor de Blasio also being absolutely weird out of New York. These stories, your calls, this day in history. Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, in coming weeks, we are going to have an additional program that we are going to add as a complement to this one. And it's going to be standalone. It's not going to be live every single day. It'll be a couple days a week, and that'll be uploaded for your listening, whatever enjoyment, I suppose. It's just going to be called Heart of America Presents The Unknown America. A lot of things we're working on for the second edition of the book. Also a children's version of the book, a third edition of, I've got so much material to work with. It's mind-numbing. And it's got, give you an idea as to why it's been so sluggish. I was doing a revision yesterday for the children's version of the book, and I spent an hour and 15 minutes researching the second wife of Zachary Taylor. I know, right? So anyway, that's one of the reasons why it takes so long to get this stuff out there, because there is just so much weird information that it just takes time to break it all down and to verify it. So we are doing a children's version of the book. We've also got a board game in the works as well. So all that to say this, we will be offering a podcast. This is not I don't consider this a podcast. I consider this, it's a live radio broadcast via multiple streams. And we do appreciate you guys hanging out and checking into it a little bit later on. But, the reality of it is that just like with terrestrial radio, when Monday's program ends and we get out through the course of our Monday, by Tuesday, a lot of what we shared with you outside of some of the more enduring and or evergreen stories, they need to be updated. So in the case of Unknown America, what we're going to be doing is talking about some of the things that are in the book currently, but are also going to be included in future editions of the book. Now, we've already updated the current work, the current file to be uploaded to Kindle literally any day now, and it is the first edition of the book that a lot of you have already got in your possession. But we've even elaborated on those stories because something, there really is a lot of history in the past, and the reality of it is we could write volumes on the life of any one given president, let alone try to find interesting snippets on each and every one of them and all the other little wonderments that make up the United States of American history. So anyway, with that said, keep your ears and eyes posted. We are going to be revising the website. We are going to be uploading a new podcast that hopefully you'll share with your family and friends. It'll certainly stump them in the history segments of your Trivial Pursuit games. So y'all stay tuned for that, because I think you're going to find it very interesting. And if you did pick up a copy of Unknown America and you've liked it, prepare to be absolutely wowed. That said, A, coffee. B, pick up a copy of the book at theunknownamerica.com, theunknownamerica.com. There's a special offer up there that will remain up there throughout the month of November and all the way up to Christmas week. However, if the books have to be shipped to you, if I don't have them in the mail, if they're going to be for Christmas gifts, if they are not shipped by the 15th of December, I cannot guarantee they are arrival. So make absolutely certain you go over there, order them today. They're deeply discounted for those of you that want to use them as Christmas gifts. Let's go take a quick look at this particular day in history. It has been a fascinating day in history. And, of course, we are talking about the 20th of November. Looking at the year 17, all the way back to 1789, New Jersey becomes the first United States state to ratify the Bill of Rights. From that point, we have to go all the way up to 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis ends in response to the Soviet Union agreeing to remove its missiles from Cuba. President John F. Kennedy ends the quarantine of Cuba all the way up to 1974. The United States Department of Justice files the final antitrust lawsuit against AT&T. The suit later leads to the breakup of AT&T and the Bell system. You know what? A lot of you might not be aware of that or even care, but for those of us with a few miles on our odometer, I'm coming to you live from the southeastern United States. I used to make all our phone calls on Southern Bell. There was South Central Bell. There was Midwestern Bell. There was Northeastern Bell. The phone company owned all the baby bells, but after the breakup, it forced the phone company to set them free. And that's kind of where we got the whole, Verizon, AT&T, WorldCom, Sprint, and all the other little communications devices out there. And interestingly enough, volleying all the way up to 1985. Yeah. Microsoft Windows 1.0 is released. November 20th, 1985. And look where we are today. The computer that I'm using right now, by most people's standards, would be considered antiquated, despite the fact that I'm broadcasting on. Of course, everything in technology is antiquated 24 hours later. But do you remember back in the day, Windows 1.0, a baud rate of 9,600, things like this, broadcasting live on the internet. Are you kidding me? Not even remotely possible. And how far we have come. So when I look at things, and I think about some of these young people out there, like, that never knew Southern Bell, South Central Bell, Midwestern Bell, telephones. You remember the old dial tones, even logging onto the computer? How excited everybody was in the mid-1990s when the World Wide Web was going to go online. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, yes, boys and girls, there was a time in this country where the internet didn't exist, and that time was only 20 years ago. So it is quite fascinating how far we have come. Now, with the click of a button and a little bit of a technological maneuvering, we can be heard across the globe. As long as my credit card takes the charge, we're all good to go, right? Hey, give us a call, 929-477-3761. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network, or I guess really more accurately, it's Heart of America with Michael Hart. We're going to be rebranding this puppy as well as offering some additional offerings for those of you that are just rabid history freaks. And there really is some pretty cool stuff out there that we're going to get into. By the way, the other podcast will not be a call-centric program. Matter of fact, it probably will not even use any commercial breaks or music or anything of that nature. It's going to be kind of a tutorial to kind of give you an idea. Now, there'll be some audios that I fully expect and anticipate that I'll be shut down from using from time to time because so many folks out there have their copyright laws squarely up their backsides. And so it's something that we always have to dance around. But we'll do everything in our power to get as much of this information out there as we can. Taking a quick jump across the pond, university staff in the United Kingdom told not to use the word. Okay, I'm going to have trouble doing this story because I can't use the words that we've been told not to use. Don't use the word. So, hold on. I got to backtrack here because I can't not use. You cannot use the word don't. No, I'm serious. Journalism professors in the UK, Leeds Trinity University, one of them, have been instructed not to use certain words in case they might frighten sensitive students. These are the same students, by the way, that never saw Windows 1.0 or didn't know anything about Midwestern Bell, didn't know about the breakup of the phone company. There's so many things in our past that so many of these young people are just completely, unabridgedly unaware of. And now, in England, according to UK media reports, then there's this. In addition to being very careful about the use of the word don't, you have to be careful of the use of the word do. According to UK media reports, also, the use, I mean, come on, y'all, this is pretty horrific stuff. I mean, come on, work with me here. All right, and some of you guys that do a lot of hyper tweeting, or you get angry in your tweets, or you get on social media, you're guilty of this. And it's scary. And I'm not even certain I feel comfortable sharing it with you. Because in England, in the United Kingdom, in an internal staff memo, staff, faculty members have been instructed that students' anxiety can lead to academic failure. And what might be causing this anxiety, in addition to the words do and don't? Yeah, capital letters. Yeah. The pain is real. The anxiety is real. The fear, the failure, the confusion, the pain. It is real. Capital letters. They can take you out. They can ruin your life. If you capitalize entire words, you might even be deemed a cultural criminal. According to the university, despite our best efforts to explain assessment tasks, any lack of clarity can generate anxiety and discourage students from attempting these assessments at all, speaking of testing. Generally, avoid using capital letters for emphasis and the overuse of the word do, and especially the word don't. Now, I would like to point out that these people are such jackasses that they are saying do not use capital letters in your correspondence because it can create a measure of anxiety. And in the memo from the university to its staff and faculty, generally avoid using capital letters for emphasis and the overuse of the word do, and especially the overuse of the word don't, and then they capitalize them. God, I love academia. These are some of the most backwoods, ignorant pieces of you-know-what there are on the face of the earth. And I know that's extreme. I get that. I am not saying teachers be bad. It was some of my better English instructors that taught me how to malaprop as well as I do. But are you kidding me? In the memo telling you not to use capital letters because they create anxiety, and then they capitalize the very words they say don't use for emphasis, while telling the faculty to work away from the emphasis of capital letters. The memo also urged staff to be explicit about any explicitlessness. That's what it says. This is an assignment requirement, and to be aware that misconceptions or misunderstandings can quickly spread among students. This can lead to further confusion, and students may even decide that the assessment, they're speaking of a test because you've got to bear in mind they're British, that the assessment is too difficult and not attempt it. So if you are supposed to use a number 2 pencil for the assessment Americanized test, and you have a pen, and the instructor sees you have a pen, but not a number 2 pencil, the instructor can now not look at you and say, don't use a pen, do use a pencil, because if he does, the university is exonerating you or releasing you from your responsibility to take the test. And they wonder why this country wanted to establish their freedom and independence. 929-477-3761. I really and truly need a break from this. You are listening to Heart of America with Michael Hart on the 20th day of 18. Y'all stick around. We are coming right back. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Is your home's crawl space making your... Let Alabama Water Management inspect your crawl space today. A wet, moldy crawl space can cause serious foundation problems. They are breeding grounds for disgusting odors, polluted air, potentially harmful allergens, and volatile organic compounds that can actually make breathing difficult and the air in your home very unhealthy. Don't take chances with your family's health. If your home has a crawl space, call Alabama Water Management today for a no-cost, no-obligation crawl space inspection.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com.
You don't have to agree with Michael Hart. You can choose to be wrong if you want to.
Hey, welcome back. Big shout out to our friends at McCrory Animal Clinic in Albertville, Alabama. Now a supporter of the program. We certainly do appreciate all of their support. And if you guys happen to live in the north central Alabama area, check out McCrory Animal Clinic. Even if you don't have an aminal that needs aminalization or medication, just drop them a note or a phone call and thank them for supporting the program. You know, we are not only an advertiser-supported program, but a listener-supported program as well. It's one of the reasons we put the Patreon thing up on the Michael Hart Show. Some of you have chosen to support us in other manners, and I mean economic manners. So, you know, some of you have been behind-the-scenes benefactors, if you will, and we appreciate that because these things are not inexpensive to put off. And if you are a supporter of the program, you can support us in so many different ways, whether it is supporting the Patreon page, which will cost you $6, or you want to do something behind the scenes. You can drop me an email, Michael at heartofamerica.net. And certainly, you know, even the supporting us on the Unknown America platform at the Unknown America. We have got this thing as discounted as we can discount it. If you do not want to order it online and you'd like to get it locally, our friends at Second and Charles in Birmingham have it, as well as Deb's Bookstore. You can find it anywhere online, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, etc. But we'd like to support our central Alabama area. Check out McCrory Animal Clinic, even if you are, in fact, individual business owners. So do us a solid, if you will, and support the people that make this program possible, and that includes you. If you want unfiltered news, the reality of what's going on in the world around you, then this is the place for you. And I don't mean exclusively the Michael Hart Show. There are other places as well. Internet news is in its infancy, and it is growing. Our numbers are growing pretty significantly. Our downloads are growing, and we are going to offer even more material through the Heart of America platform, literally beginning next week. But it takes time. It takes money. And if you don't want to have to pollute your mind with the corporate news. And I don't care what network you're tuning into, folks. It's all corporate. If you want the truth, money, and if you don't want to support, have to pollute your mind with the corporate news. And I don't care what network you're tuning into, folks. It's all corporate. I mean, prior to if you want the truth, money, and if you don't want to support, you have to pollute your mind with the corporate news. And I don't care. A lot of folks don't. Behind courthouses and in taverns even. But you had a lot of these underground newspapers that were very frequently actually produced by church pastors and other courthouses and in taverns even. The Internet is that version of it. But you had a lot of these underground of the type newspapers that were very frequently that didn't toe the corporate line of England, or in this case, even the United States. There are stories that are abounding out there that the national press will not be able to touch, will not desire touching, or will avoid altogether. Over the course of my career, I have met quite a few folks, and I don't mean just listeners, I mean people in the know. I know Laura Ingram and Ann Coulter. You guys have heard her on my program for years. I also have friends that I talk with weekly that work with the president. We also have associates, comrades that we have worked with in the past that have access to the White House. There's a lot of things that you're going to learn on this program, not just today, but in the future, that you will not hear on the national programs. Last night, on his show on YouTube, Andrew McLean, another longtime friend of ours, dealt with exactly what I'm talking about. the fact that there are things afoot that a lot of folks do not realize. There's a new book coming out. We're not going to get into the book today, but we have some firsthand knowledge of, well, just let's say the author's activities, and we'll let it go at that. As we get a little closer to the release date, we'll get a little bit more out there, but there are stories that you need to be aware of. If you were to have a camera on me, you would see that I'm in my office on the top level of my home. Behind my chair is a window. If I turn around and look out that window, I will be looking at the home of the man that publishes the land report. Eddie has become a very good friend, also a supporter of the program. And it's interesting that when you're looking at the California wildfires, things that you have learned on this very program. I know that Jerry Brown and Donald Trump were roaming around the fire-ravaged terrain yesterday, as well as the governor-elect. Oh, Gavin. But it is the policies of the California administration, of government, that has blood on its hands. And I say that, I'm not speaking for the folks at the land report. I'm speaking to the fact that it was through them that I learned about land management practices that do not exist in California to the extent that they do in other parts of the country. So the environmental movement in California is in a large measure responsible for the death and destruction of so many Californians, Americans, and their homes, their property. And it knows no socioeconomic status. Poor people are dying. Rich people are dying. One-story ranches are burning to the ground, as are mansions. And why? Because the damn liberals think they got it all figured out on economic policy as well as land management. A couple of days ago, and by the way, I'm not done with this university story either because I'm going to piss all over the Europeans today. I'm just in that kind of a mood. A couple of days ago, I was bringing a brand new shelf that I had ordered. Actually, my wife had ordered it for me to hold literally stacks of books that are coming in that are some of them mine, some of them other people that want to be interviewed on the program. Well, to get the thing here expedited, she told her not to assemble the shelf, just my husband can do it, which obviously I can, and I did. But as I'm assembling this shelf, I turn it over because you got to put the screws in it upside down. And there's a tag, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember. The shelf is right there. I can see it from where I'm sitting. But in essence, the tag on the shelf says something to the effect of the manufacturing process for this particular product meet state of California environmental standards. It's a damn shelf. I am so sick of these jackaloons. And this is the same kind of blithering mindset that gets stories like this one, where you can't capitalize certain words or use the word don't or do on certain college campuses in Britain because students might find the use of those words frightening. So think about what I've just talked to you about. We got frightening words, capitalized letters, poor land management, a shelf that meets state environmental standards, and we're just getting started. You see, folks, at the end of the day, it's not democratic policy. It's not environmental policy. It's not just liberalism. Coming back on the other side, by the way, I mean, on this university story, I am about 4 sentences into a 3-page story. So let's take a real quick break. Come back to the other side. If you want to chime in, 929-477-3761. Before we do, however, you are going to hear an advertisement for the Land Report. There's a very special. The thing is like $60, $70 a year. You can get it for $15. And the reason they're doing that is to support this program. If you are a land owner or you love land, there are farms and ranches in this publication that are absolutely gorgeous, but it gets into things like I just shared with you about the importance of land management and how in the state of California, predicated on their environmental policies. Okay, let's back up before we go to break here and make sure we're clear about this. Poor land management has now been, at the very least, majorly, if not completely, responsible for the deaths of at least 40 Americans and 100 more missing. I thought environmental policy was to protect life, was to advance the environment for future generations. Yeah, because yet again, we see idiotic policies not thought through, having exactly the opposite effect that was previously desired. That's what happens when government makes decisions. That's what happens when government gets in the way. Check out the Land Report. You can find out more about them on landreport.com. I strongly suggest that if you support the American landowner, you want to be a landowner, or you just love reading stories about what made this country great, check them out. You'll hear more about them on this program, and thank them for their support of Heart of America with Michael Hart right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land. If you're a fan of the Michael Hart Show and are enjoying the daily commentary, interviews, and audio shorts, then please consider supporting the program financially. Creating a daily talk program takes a great deal of time and money. Although corporate sponsors are always welcome, the real support comes from people like you, the regular listeners. So if you support the Christian conservative message and values we share on this program and would like to help, please go to our website, michaelhartshow.com, and click on the orange Patreon button at the top of the page. For less than $7 a month, you can help us keep going while we spread our faith-based conservative views worldwide. So if you support our views, please consider supporting the program. Just go to www.michaelhartshow.com and click on the orange Patreon button, and thanks for your support and for listening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
None shall pass.
What?
None shall pass.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside.
I move for
The Michael Hart Show.
You make me stand.
everything eventually. But, hey, you know, pennies matter. Dollars add up. You know, all this stuff costs money. So we're trying to keep everything moving right along. And so that's where your support comes in. So y'all just consider that. Oh, let's go out to the phones, and we'll start with, I don't know. How about Jim? Hello, Jim. How are you?
Hey, Mike. It's funny. I meant to tell you this yesterday. You know how on the radio station, you know that you're fixing to come onto the air because you'd hear that swoosh, right? You'd be like, okay, Mike just picked me up. Now I cannot use 4-letter words. You know, all of that. Okay.
Right.
On this one, Tolly sets you up on his board or whatever he's got. Right before you come on the air, do you know what it says?
No.
It says unmuted. I just laughed. I have like a twisted sense of humor knowing that now I'm unmuted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, the reason I'm calling in, it's very interesting.
By the way, Jim, just as a point of order before you get started, you know, back in the olden days, we had a 20-second delay. You could talk for 19 seconds. Instead of the F word, 27 times. We push the button. All that I don't have that luxury, Jim.
Yeah. I got you. Well, you know what else, too? Not a lot, but I would get into it with Jeff or with James sometimes. Not as much with James as with Jeff. But I would start my little diatribe, and those guys would mute me because they didn't want, for whatever reason, just to stick me sometimes, just to rankle me. Yeah, so I was well aware of that delay. Anyway, this is what I'm calling in about. It's very interesting that you're bringing up the California fires. Now, I already prepped Tolly, okay? So you know where I'm kind of going with this, all right? I'm not sure if it was UN Agenda 2020 or if it was 2030 or 2021. I'm not sure. I don't follow that kind of Bilderberg kind of stuff for trilateral. Agenda 21. All right. In there, they had proposals for land use, for worldwide land use, okay? And,
yes, they did.
Again, like we talked about, Obama, the whole plan with Obama was to do the handoff to Clinton to implement a lot of this stuff in the United States. Well, you can download that map of land use from that Agenda 2021. And the areas that you're having fires every year in California and the West Coast, if you overlay that UN map, it corresponds exactly with where the UN designates for at some point in the future to be non-use by humans. Now, you want to run with a conspiracy theory that can get you some traction? Start the discussion on that one, Mike, because then you start asking yourself, okay, if this corresponds to this non-human land use or whatever they call it, why is it we keep having these devastating fires? Maybe, do you think, to drive people out of those areas?
I don't know if it would be that purpose or not, but I mean, you are right about some of the tenets that are contained in Agenda 21, because it also establishes, waterways and water, access to property that has water on it, water testing, and there are suburbs all around the United States of America, and you might not even be aware of this, although actually you probably are, is in the Deep South in 2011 when those tornadoes came through and obliterated much of the southeastern United States and certainly parts of large swaths of Alabama and Georgia, that a lot of those towns in their rebuilding process adopted some of these tenets of Agenda 21 for sustainable development rebuilding.
That's right.
And you see this. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, you go ahead.
Here's another thing about that Agenda 21 stuff. You remember when Obama was there, everybody was so shocked that you had that standoff with the BLM and the Bundy family and all of this stuff, okay? The grazing rights. That was part of the Agenda 21, the area they wanted them off of, too. So they were doing a test case to see how the American public would respond to the BLM going all SWAT on the Bundy family. And if I'm not mistaken, all of the charges against everybody in the Bundy family, and correct me if I'm wrong, all those federal charges went away after the Obama administration left office.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Exactly.
Pretty much so.
So, and here's the last thing, but in this discussion, this needs to be said. People, the reason that the federal government is able to do this land management stuff and blah, 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 is because the western states came in as territories. And when they were territories, just like Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Guam, that is and D.C., those areas, when they're in the territory status, are under complete control of the federal government, okay? There's one state that has less than 2% of its land is controlled by the federal government, and it's because they came into excluding the original 13 colonies, of course, but came in without going through the territory process, and that's the state of Texas. You do not see any BLM or any of that in Texas because Texas has such a minuscule amount of federally controlled territory. And don't forget this also. Vince Foster was deliberately, after he was killed, and it can be debated who it was that pulled the trigger, but after he was killed, was deliberately moved onto federal parkland so that it would be under the investigation would be under the jurisdiction of the park police, federally controlled law enforcement, so that the Clintons could dictate how that investigation went. So when you're talking about all of this federally controlled territory, federally controlled land, there is a cornucopia of bad things, anti-citizen things that can occur on that land. So what's the upshot of this? Texas is a good place to find some refuge. Just saying.
There you go. Jim, I appreciate the call.
Yep.
It's very important to understand that that's kind of goes back to what I was talking about at the top of the program. I made a statement that in the corporate news, you're going to hear the corporate news story. You're not going to get the real meat and potato stuff. When we go off the air, and I don't mean just today, I mean every day, we are constantly talking to people that are behind the scenes, that are anonymous, at least as far as the broadcast is concerned, but that know things, that are plugged in and connected. If you watch the corporate news, it doesn't matter, it's CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever, you're going to get the corporate narrative. Now, that's not necessarily them purposely keeping the truth from you. Hang tight, callers, about to get right back to you. It's a matter of presenting a news product that is as palpable to as large an audience as possible. And what I mean by that is, okay, looking at the fires. The president visits fire-ravaged California. The governor-elect is there. The governor is there. There's going to be emergency relief poured into the state. We have the death toll. We see the graphics and the images. And being the way most news consumers are, we want to see the wreck at Talladega, right? We want to see the fight at the hockey rink, right? We want to see our favorite football team obliterate the other team, or somebody else's favorite football team get annihilated on the gridiron. We bend our necks for the accident on the interstate. Maybe we even follow the fire engine. We are just wired that way. So what goes on in the fire is what is so captivating to us. That's why news organizations like CNN, and even Fox for that matter, can take a murder or a disappearance of a young girl and get 6 months of broadcasting out of it. But we want to talk about the fire. and it's death and destruction. When the real story is, why did the fire occur? Now, what is more provocative or entertaining to most Americans? Watching the fire burn large swaths of California, or talking about appropriate land management practices? But yet that's the story. But it ain't sexy enough. You've got policies out of California that are responsible for this. Now, whether or not these policies were adopted from the United Nations Agenda 21 or not, I do not know. But I do know that what Jim was referencing, Agenda 21, and by the way, don't take my word for it, it's right there on the front page of the UN website. They don't do anything to hide it. The Agenda 21 is actually, the actual proposals contained in it are actually pretty extensive. It talks about water management and land management and child management and humanitarian. I mean, it gets deep. But no, it does talk about some of these issues. But as I point out, across the street, right down the road from me, is a guy that is so plugged into the land management industry, it's mind-numbing. This is a guy that, speaks to people like Ted Turner and T. Boone Pickens, and knows all too well what's going on in Colorado and with the Bureau of Land Management. Now, you guys can continually go over here to the corporate news and worry about how many people died in the wildfire, or you can ask the bigger, deeper questions as to why in the living heck this happened in the first place, and should people like Jerry Brown or anybody within the California EPA be held accountable. Because if we can make attempts to impeach the president of the United States because he bragged about touching some woman's cooter, I would like to think that maybe with having the fact that you got 40 or 50 people died because of your policies might be something we'd want to explore as well. But no, let's just go back to the news of the day and pay attention to what the pretty lady has to say about the death count. And, after all, dinner's almost ready.
Have to agree with Michael Hart. You can choose to be wrong if you want to.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So, before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
None shall pass.
What?
None shall pass.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside.
I move for
The Michael Hart Show.
You make me stand.
929-477-3761. Talking a bit about what's going on in the world around you. We got a couple other national news stories. We got a brand new book which is coming out. We're not going to get into that today. But guess what? There are people that are involved with that project that we happen to know, y'all. A lot of y'all here in the state of Alabama, we're coming to you live, are aware of that liaison, if you will. But in other parts of the world, because we are attracting listeners in Costa Rica and Brazil and Canada and the United Kingdom, because apparently they're pretty upset about not using the word don't, and they're afraid they're losing the capital letters. We'll break that story down a little bit more a little bit later on. But nonetheless, there are things going on in the world around us that certain people within certain organizations of the media, including this one, have firsthand knowledge of. And that's why we encourage you guys to check us out, spread the word, because we're going to be talking about some of the things that, A, the national news media is not necessarily qualified to speak to, and B, doesn't have a clue about. On the national level, folks, for whatever this is worth to you, on the national level, these things can tend to be hyper-produced. Okay? They're not going to get down and dirty or nasty like we saw. And I don't mean nasty in a bad way. I mean in a truthful way. So we appreciate you guys tuning in and giving us an opportunity to share the truth with you. Let's get out to the phones at 929-477-3761. Hello, Murph. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning. I got to tell you, I've just here lately, obviously, with the transition and everything, and listening to other people and trying to fill in the gaps between you and Scott and Rabbi Walker and Andrew and everybody, I'm just reminded of and even more appreciative of the fact that you go long form. And I actually learn things from your show, and listening to some of these other folks out there, they're good talkers, but they're so topical, it's just not even funny. I don't remember anything they talk about. You know, the stuff that you and the other...
I'm sorry, Murph.
That's okay. I'll take that one.
He's on hold as well, and I've got this call screen thing here, and I can see I have a lot more access to stuff here than I had before, and it's confusing me. I'm sorry, Murph.
That's all right. But, you know, just when I think about, like, what you guys talk about, I actually can tell other people and inform other people in other conversations, and I remember. So I just really do appreciate that. But they used to be, I'm sure he's still doing it over in Georgia somewhere, a guy named Charles Butler. You familiar with him? I think I got his name right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually worked for Reagan on his nuclear commission. And, you know, we talk about liberal environmental policy. A lot of that came out of the Sierra Club, and most people don't know that the Sierra Club was created by Big Coal at the onset of the nuclear industry. And that was also done around fraudulent studies on some stupid little owl they claimed to be on the endangered species list when it really wasn't. And the whole entire environmental movement is based off of fraud. And like you often say, the liberals often support policies that are detrimental to their own behalf. So
darndest thing, isn't it?
Between all the yeah, I'm still there. But between that and just absolute, you know, if it feels good, do it kind of ignorance, couple that with the ideas of delusional grandeur, so to speak, that they just know so much better and they're so much smarter than everybody else, it's no wonder that everything they touch turns to crap.
Yeah, I know. And that's a big part of that academia mindset, because it's so interesting that, and by the way, I really appreciate the compliments, the kind words. I mean, we love doing it, and we love getting deep into it. And I don't know if you tuned in yesterday, but I made a comment that the night before, I guess that would have been Monday night, I am literally sitting there watching a debate on C-SPAN between two college professors over the rights to impeach. And I'm just twisted that way, Murph. It's the darndest thing. But, you know, the guy that I'm talking about that's with the land report that tells me so much of what's going on in California. I mean, this is what he does. I mean, this is all he does. And it's so funny because he and we had lunch together 3 days ago. I mean, you know, his wife and my wife run together. I mean, this isn't somebody that I speak to sporadically. I talk to him. He's probably listening right now. I talk to him on an almost daily basis, and we have in-depth conversations about what's going on in this country as it relates to land management. And, you know, he talks to people that are in places like Colorado and California and Texas, and the frustrations. I mean, some of the people that he features in his publication, they own ranches of 10, 15, 20, 50, even 500,000 acres. I mean, he's got clients that he works with that own farms and ranches that are the size of, you know, a small state. And, you know, he gets firsthand information of their constant battles with the government over just these things. And these landowners know what to do. And they're just heartbroken that people are dying in California because you've got jackaloon politicians like Jerry Brown. They're talking about in San Francisco, the whole idea behind, you know, the EPA, in some cases, was the elimination of smog or pollution or fog and pollution, which is what smog is. But the smoke from the forest fire is so thick, the Japanese tourists can't take pictures of themselves about the bungee jump off the Golden Gate. I mean, it's this constant state of mistakes.
I was stationed in San Diego for 4 years back in the late 90s, and I'm sure it's still true today, but we'd get on the ship, we'd get 5 miles out from the coast. You look back, and there was nothing but a blanket of smog from Tijuana all the way to L.A. Yeah. And they have the most, like you just said, the most strict rules out there. And let's not forget Al Gore and his stupid carbon credit crap and his little treaties on weird islands and other places in the States where you're not allowed to touch the forest because that has to be there to suck up all the carbon from 4,000 miles away.
Yeah, so you have some of the worst air conditions in one of the states with the strictest codes, environmentally speaking, which is the impetus for these fires. Then you look at places like Chicago, where it's almost impossible to get yourself a handgun, and yet you have a murder rate which on some weekends surpasses that of what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, it's absolutely mind-numbing. They line up to be ignorant, and then Democrat liberal voters line up to vote for the ignorance. And I don't know if it's the politicians that are that ignorant or if it's the voters that are that ignorant that are voting for the ignorant politicians. It's stuff that makes it's like time travel. You can't get your head around it. It's so stupid. It's almost impossible to grasp the ignorance.
And then they're mad because Donald Trump helps them.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Oh, yeah. And then there's that. You're exactly right. Then there's that. So he goes out there, says, federal government's going to stand behind you. He's got the governor-elect and the governor with him who are now, sucking up to him because the reality that he is finally there to save the day. And then people take to Twitter to complain that the president came to California to help, and it's the Californians that are complaining. Absolutely, positively priceless. 929-477-3761. One of the great things about the Internet is, although it is the top of the hour, I don't have to take a break yet. So let's get straight to Clark's call. Murph, unfortunately, your call dropped off. I appreciate your calling in. Certainly do appreciate the kind words as well. And that's one of the reasons why we're breaking this blog out also. We want to go long form because when we go to Unknown America, and this program, Heart of America with Michael Hart, will continue. It'll probably get pared down to about 90 minutes or so we can make preparations to do the other one that'll air later on in the day. But we will not just be talking about American history on that program. We'll also be talking about, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers, and things like that. Things you might just not know about this country. For example, how did America almost end up getting in to a major potential war over a poplar tree? And this happened in just the last few years. Stuff like that, little titillating stuff like that. Give us a call 929-477-3761, and let's get to Clark's call. What's up, my brother Clark?
Hey, now, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Great. Good to hear from Murph. And, yeah, I got to just kind of add on to what he said there. I had somebody set me up with an app where I could listen to some other terrestrial stations. And so far, just have not been really stimulated by what I've listened to there. Missing what y'all had pretty big time. Y'all were talking about something, and it was thought-provoking, you know? And just, I don't know, listening to people talk not about anything just didn't get in it for me.
Well, there's a lot of folks out there that, you know, it's funny, you know, Murph, is that you can Google this quote. It actually ended up in a book on quotes, and I said this in a speech about 25 years ago. I used to be with an organization called Toastmasters, and I said this in a speech, and it got picked up. It actually ended up in a couple of different books, and you can even Google it if you want to. But the quote goes like this: "The ability to speak eloquently is not to be confused with actually having something to say." And I believe that with all of my heart. I am not here to expend words for my own benefit. If people don't walk away from this with something, then I'm wasting my time.
There you go. You know, and that's you just said what I was saying, maybe a little better. Jim suggested that perhaps the intended consequence of the EPA-type environmental regulations they had in California was to get people off of land. And, you know, the thing is so many times when the left does something, they have ulterior motives. And they have weaponized all these different agencies, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, my default position, or maybe not position, but the first thing I think whenever they're trying to do something is, what are they really wanting out of this? And then I got to thinking, you know, when their intentions are benevolent, can you think of any program the left has come up with that has been long-term beneficial to whoever it was supposed to help? And I really can't come up with anything, Michael.
There's not a lot, you know. So many of the Democratic policies are going, you know, they are the strip malls of intellect. They are becoming antiquated with each passing day. And I think to a degree, you know, because we've kind of busted on this Alexandria Cortez, and we'll continue to do so because she's also a wackadoodle. But I think in some sense, in some of these places like California and New York, that these folks are so fed up with it, they'll vote for a Democratic socialist to try something new. And, you know, I'm going to do this in the next hour, Clark, and don't hang up on me. I just want to make this point real quick. There's an interesting story that came out that Mayor de Blasio up in New York wants more government control of New York City property and wants literally for the city to control everything in terms of its infrastructure. In other words, no private ownership of buildings any longer. Now, I'm going to get a little deeper into that on the other side. But you think about just that for a moment, where the liberals, they're you know, we say they're socialists. Some people say they're communists. Some people say we got to come up with a new word, because socialism, liberalism, and progressivism and communism no longer describe the left. They are something out of this world. I just don't know what it is. They are becoming that unhinged and ignorant with some of their ideologies. They're causing forest fires. Go ahead.
And he actually wants to seize the means of production rather than seize control of them at this point.
Here's a quote. I think people all over the city, of every background, would like to have the city government be able to determine which building goes where, how high it would be, who gets to live in it, what the rent will be. I think there is a socialistic impulse, which I hear every day in every kind of community. They would like things to be planned in accordance to their needs. The mayor of New York is suggesting that New York be turned into a commune. This is one step away from having Snake Plissken move into your rent-controlled condo.
So, how many years ago was it, Michael, that the federal government seized control of the House of Prostitution out in Nevada?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know.
I mean, they can't run that kind of place and make a profit.
Yeah,
They're incapable.
You're right. You're right.
I mean,
money. Priceless.
I don't want to say what I don't know. They cannot properly run a house of prostitution and make money, and they think they're going to be able to rent control. There was a thread, I think I saw it last night. A socialist had said that, capitalism is waiting in line to pay $4 for a loaf of bread. Socialism is waiting in line to get your bread for free. And then several hundred people piled on and pointed out that where bread is free, there is no bread.
Right.
And, if they take control of all the apartments and condos, et cetera, you're just not going to have a place to live.
Well, it won't really matter because according to de Blasio, the government should decide who lives where. I mean, that is communism in its purest sense.
Hey, you brought up Alexandria Cortez a minute ago. Did you see the Alex Trebek thing over the weekend?
Actually, I saw a couple different ones.
Okay, so supposedly Alex Trebek had posed the question, how much would people pay to watch Alexandria Cortez, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Maxine Waters play Jeopardy? And
I actually did not see that. I did not see that.
The more I thought about that, it's just the more I thought about it, the funnier it got.
No, that might be a life savings kind of investment on my part because that is too funny.
Anyway, well, look, man, sounds like things are going well. Are you starting to see things pick up?
Yeah, we are. There's going to be, there's some natural consolidation in some people's efforts that will probably take place. We're seeing our numbers go up here. We're just trying to get our head around, what the future of the program looks like because we are going to continue to do this every single day. But at the end of the day, we want to get a little bit deeper and a little more long form. I'd rather have 100 or 200 people going long form with us than 25,000 that want the topical news because the topical news is just that. It's a product you can get anywhere. And people need to realize that you're not going to learn anything from it. You're going to get somebody's, and oftentimes warped opinion on what's going on in the world around you. So if I can't do a program that I personally find intellectually worthy, then we're just not going to do the program. So we're taking this time next week and splitting it off. We'll still be in there about 90 minutes. And then later, Tuesday, Thursday, maybe even over the weekend, we'll do 1 hour programs that are more in-depth and will not take any callers that might even be pre-recorded that will really get behind the scenes on some of these stories that are going on in the world around us. Because like the California wildfires, but also the history of this country. There's so many things going on in the country right now that people are still unaware of, that there's a reason for it. They turn on the news and she tells you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eye, but even she misses the point. And you want to make some fundamental change in this country, you got to know why things happen and the reason that they happen and what's likely happening in the future because it's already been foretold by the history of this country. So with that said, kind of a long-form answer, yeah, we got plans. Yeah, we're growing. But the reality of it is I don't concern myself so much with the growth of the program. I'd rather have a bunch of like-minded people here that can make a difference and aren't looking just for the topical news of the day because, it's kind of like the bread thing. Clark, if there's nothing to be learned, then there's really nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're providing in-depth education in a palatable format, I think it keeps growing.
I think it will, and we're committed for the long term because I need to be committed. Clark, I appreciate the call very much.
You take care.
You too, and thank you for the support so very much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, going to take a real quick one, come back on the other side. A little bit late for this particular segment. This one's going real quick. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show, Heart of America with Michael Hart, right here on the Heart of America Network, 929-477-3761. We're coming right back.
the Democrats.
Targeted people with mental health issues. They go after people with mental illness, people with depression, people with anxiety.
It's despicable.
The consequences of this targeting are horrific. People with mental health or substance abuse issues account for
62% of all Democrats
in the United States.
It's sick. It's twisted.
Know the truth. Spread the truth.
Democrats suck.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So, before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg will end up and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, we kind of came in pretty late on that particular break. So it's all good. Y'all hang tight. Technology's kind of going off the rails on me here. So give us a call, 929-477-3761. That's 929-477-3761. Been talking a bit about the California wildfires, why they have occurred, also this craziness. Think of this for just a moment, and really without trying terribly hard, terribly much. The stories that I'm looking at today in Britain, universities are being told, the faculties of university being told not to use the word don't and to cease using capital letters for fear of frightening some students. Okay. Then we have the story on the land wackiness in California, and the fact that it is the environmental policies of the state of California that have in large part created the problems in that state. And then we have this Bill de Blasio story out of New York, as well as the continuing discussion of making Stacey Abrams the Speaker of the House. The wackiness from the left, it knows no boundaries. Bill de Blasio cited his, and by the way, this is his words, socialistic impulse, close quote, in describing an ideal world where New York City government has control over all land and buildings in the city. Directly from his comments, and this is a quote. I think people all over this city, of every background, would like to have the city government be able to determine which building goes where, how high it will be, who gets to live in it, what the rent will be. Now, de Blasio made those comments in an interview with New York Magazine. He went on to say, I think there's a socialistic impulse, which I hear every day, in every kind of community, that they would like things to be planned in accordance to their needs. Like things to be planned in accordance to their needs. A planned, not just community, but society. Government planning for you in accordance to your needs, determined by the government. Do y'all remember back in the day, we were on that terrestrial tower? This has been, oh boy, at least 6-7 years ago. Our little friend, Julia, and her life. The life of Julia. Yeah, and how that website disappeared after only about 6 or 7 months, where people began to figure out. The Life of Julia website was put up by the Obama administration to explain how, under a single-payer health insurance program, the federal government would take care of you from cradle to grave. And it went through Julia's life from her birth to, actually, it started out with Julia's mother originally with the prenatal care. And then it went all the way through Julia's prenatal care. Interestingly enough, it got into things such as surgeries that she might need as she aged, and the access to certain lifestyle or life-significant periods in her life, like giving birth, getting married, and things of this nature that might change her health needs, her health care needs. Interestingly enough, Julia just vanishes at the age of 65. Trust me, folks, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm on a collision course. When you get to be 65, 67, 70, 80, 90, I got an 85-year-old dad, your health needs escalate significantly, your care needs. But no, Julia just disappeared at 65, and so the website disappeared shortly thereafter as people realized what was being sold to them was a cradle-to-grave healthcare system that seemed to stop when they became pricier. That's the way government rolls, and that's the reason you've got people out there like you have with Bill de Blasio, and the fact that he thinks his city should own and control every building. Asked about housing inequality, de Blasio bemoaned the soaring rent and home prices in one of the world's most expensive cities and said that ideally the government would be able to implement tough laws around income levels and rents. He went on to say, look, I didn't even know anybody besides me use this word. Look, if I had my druthers, the city government would determine every single plot of land, how development would proceed, and there would be very stringent requirements around income levels and rents. That's called socialism, boys and girls. Would you like to come over here and get you some? Get you some socialism. Come on. Come to New York and get you some socialism. You know you want to tap it. Come on. Come on, get you some. Quick break. Coming right back out to the phones. You're listening to Heart of America on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. fan of The Michael Hart Show and are enjoying the daily commentary, interviews, and audio shorts, then please consider supporting the program financially. Creating a daily talk program takes a great deal of time and money. Although corporate sponsors are always welcome, the real support comes from people like you, the regular listeners. So if you support the Christian conservative message and values we share on this program and would like to help, please go to our website, michaelhartshow.com, and click on the orange Patreon button at the top of the page. For less than $7 a month, you can help us keep going while we spread our faith-based conservative views worldwide. So if you support our views, please consider supporting the program. Just go to www.michaelhartshow.com and click on the orange Patreon button, and thanks for your support and for listening.
It's the Michael Hart Show.
Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Hey, welcome back. This program just cruising right along. So we're going to take a detour here and take a couple of phone calls at 929-477-3761. Talk a bit about government swapping up land. Yeah, before we get out the phones, later in the interview, Mayor de Blasio admitted that this type of governmental control is not possible right now, saying it causes friction and anger. You think? Yeah, when people have their property stolen, I can see that being the case. But he also said there are many people in New York City who would like to have a government that better addresses their daily needs. Here's what I'd like the government to do. Get lost. I can deal with my own daily needs. That's why I'm doing this program. I'm making $1 here, making $1 there, selling a book, engaged in a speaking business, running a waterproofing company. Yeah, I've got needs, and I need my needs met. But I appreciate it, Mayor de Blasio. I can take care of myself. Oh boy, I almost said something I did not want to say. So I will check my verbiage, despite the fact this program is on the internet. I'm still trying to keep it as friendly as I possibly can and not demonstrate my sometimes salty demeanor. All right, let's go out to the phones and we'll talk to Tolly. Hey, Tolly, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Michael, you and your longtime listeners, especially the ones that have read your Unknown America book, well know the influence and power of extremely wealthy families like the Rothschilds. And when you have enough money, and I'm a computer nerd, so you've heard people talk about the blockchain and how the blockchain is the future and all this Bitcoin stuff. Well, even Bitcoin has a problem. All these cryptocurrencies have a problem called the 51% problem. In other words, if you have someone with a powerful enough computer to do as much calculation as everyone else combined, they can rewrite the ledger. They can take over the Bitcoin block and they can do double spending or triple spending or quadruple spending, and no one can account for it because their computer is powerful enough to take over the entire ledger. And that's really geeky and nerdy. So what am I getting at? What I'm saying is this. When you control all the resources or a very significant portion of the resources, you can distort a free market. If you were to take away all the rules and all the burdens, you can distort the free market. And I imagine there are some liberals that would hear that and jump up and cheer and say, you're right, democracy is important because if you have all the resources, you shouldn't be able to control the market. Here's the problem with that logic, though. What they are effectively arguing for and have succeeded in accomplishing in our federal government, also our state governments, also our local governments, is the government taking over as basically one really wealthy individual. So when you talk about the Bureau of Land Management and the fires in California, it can't help but remind me, and I'll ask this rhetorically, I'll answer it myself. Do you know how much of the government, how much of the land in America is owned by the federal government? It's almost 1/3 of America. Almost
right.
1/3 of America. They own over half of the land in all of America. In Nevada, the federal government owns 85% of Nevada.
Well,
they
right.
own 700,000 square miles in Alaska. So the federal government takes over all this land, and how could you've seen how ineffective Congress is. You've seen how bad they are at passing a budget. They have a continuing resolution all the time because they can't make a budget. We can't get out of debt. Last time it happened was Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton working together, which, by the way, is scary. But we have such a incredible bureaucracy at the federal level, and about half of our country and about 80% of the West is run by the same inefficient bureaucracy. The best government is the one that governs least. So you can get into some conspiracy theory here. That's my last point. Some conspiracy theory. Why does this government want to own all this land? Why do they have such an investment? They could argue, well, it's unsettable land. It's hard to settle. We claim over here. We claimed it. We'd sell it to private individuals, but no one wants it because it's very mountainous and hard. Or you could say it's because we came off the gold standard. And if you look at the timeline of the government acquiring all this land and taking over this land, and by the way, I hate eminent domain, but if you look at the government taking over this land, it very much coincides with coming off the gold standard and the idea of having an actual backed currency. So if you can't have
that's actually a very good point. It's a good point, Tolly.
Well, I try to make one once in a while. I mean, usually I'm just crazy, but this one I tried to make a point on. So, yeah, I think the government buys up all the land to have something to back its full faith and credit because they took it off gold. So if China ever were to say, hey, America, we're going to call in some of our debt, America could be like, all right, China, we'll give you some land in Nevada. It'll appreciate over time.
I am so happy that you brought that up because I haven't spoken to this in years. And stay on the phone with me, Tolly, because I don't think a lot of people realize something here. And you just really stimulated something for me.
That sounds dirty, Mike. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, it does. I retract that. The jury shall strike that from the record. But a lot of people, when they say, well, we're borrowing money from the Germans, we're borrowing money from the Chinese, they kind of look at that like we're going over there and we're filling out a credit application and we're on the installment plan. But no, that's not the way it works. We're selling them treasury notes, bonds, etc. And they are buying equity positions, not in the truest sense of stock, but they're buying positions in the full faith and credit of the United States government. They're buying the same kind of treasuries on a much larger scale, obviously, that could be sold on the open market. And I think it's very important that we realize is that we're not going over to China or to Japan or wherever or to Germany and borrowing money in the truest sense of the word. They are coming in, and we owe money, by the way, to about, I think the last time I looked at it, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 70 different nations. Not that we're borrowing money in the traditional sense from them, but that they are buying our treasury bonds. And those bonds, in some cases, as you point out, are callable. And these governments that own these large swaths of the American economy can call in that debt. And if they did so simultaneously, we ain't got the means to shore up our responsibilities financially. They literally could take over the country, economically speaking, and that's what you're referring to. Because after the gold standard, and the federal government owns all this land, it's that land that is shoring up those obligations, which in some cases can be called for repayment on a moment's notice. And people don't realize that's one of the reasons all the chatter about, Barack Obama, people don't seem to realize that, well, every family in America is in $55,000 in debt. But they don't really think that's real money because it doesn't feel like it affects them. These other governments, these bondholders begin calling these notes, you will feel that debt. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Tolly, because enough people don't realize that.
Well, I appreciate that. That's what you do the best is you do what they talk about all day is long form and talking about these things that don't get talked about on other programs. Unknown America is a great book. They call it special drawing rights for a reason. The gold standard used to be our standard, and we backed our currency with a non-easily replenishable, precious, special, long-term, historically special metal, gold, the gold standard. But then Nixon took us off the gold standard completely, and now we more or less rely on the International Monetary Fund and these things called special drawing rights, and all these currencies combined in a basket of currencies. Well, the thing is, if those currencies don't produce an investment, if they don't bring in money, if they don't accrue wealth, you can be taken out of the SDR basket. And America, with the incredible leverage that China has against America right now, and doing things like the petro yuan and coming up with their own currencies, and remember, Iran bought oil from, I believe it was India, in gold during the Obama administration because we sanctioned the heck out of Iran, and gold was used, a gold-backed currency was used for the first time in hundreds of years. So that if the value of the dollar decreases so much. And again, I would argue this whole land stuff is still tied to that because we use the land to prop up our dollar because we've destroyed it so much with the Federal Reserve System. So we back it with our land as well as our full faith and credit. Like they could basically mortgage our land if you wanted to look at it that way. If you get taken out of the SDR, the special drawing rights, your currency collapses. Your government has a very hard time recovering from that. And so it's like when you watch the golf ball approach the cup right as it's going across the green. It doesn't just hit the edge of the cup and then slowly drop down. No, that golf ball is sitting there just fine when it's on the edge, but then as it teeters just a little bit closer to the edge of the cup, it drops suddenly. And I would argue that that's
right.
Where our country stands economically. We're doing pretty okay right now. I mean, Trump has done a great job of bringing back some jobs, lowering taxes, and hopefully producing an actual prosperous economy again. But our economy is always like that golf ball on the edge of a cup, just ready to drop down suddenly. And that's where guys like, Ron Paul have spoken for a long time, and I think it's well worth looking into. And definitely when you get your Unknown America program going, definitely worth listening to more about that as well.
Well, no, I completely agree with that. And I've made the comment many times, Tolly, and I've used the golf ball as an analogy. That once that golf ball is committed to falling, there's nothing you can do to stop it. And that's exactly where we are. And by the way, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love talking to you guys is because I've just pulled out my notebook and I have created I'm starting to create a list of things I want to talk about, on Unknown America that are not just historical, or maybe in this case they might be. And one of the things at the top of my list right here is fractional reserves lending. And so we're going to get into that a little bit later on. I'm getting kind of excited about going really deep with some of this stuff because a lot of folks, as you point out, are completely oblivious to it.
Wouldn't it be great if we could fractional reserve lend? Like, I would love right now just to be like, hey, I've got $100 in my bank account right now, but hey, let me go spend, $10,000 and then just lend it out and come back later and say,
well,
yeah,
see,
I invested that.
This is the reason. Okay, stay with me for 1 second. I know you're about to hang up, but stay with me for 1 second. This is one of the reasons that you've got all these talkers and listeners around the country that are bemoaning the idiotic statements of Alexandria Cortez. She came out a couple of days ago and talked about health care. Well, just pay for it. Just pay for it. And people think that it's a matter of just printing money. And a lot of conservative talkers think it's just a matter of that she's just stupid about the lending practices and doesn't understand how the money works and all that kind of stuff. But what's really concerning is that there's too many people out there that think like Alexandria that don't realize that if the government came along and just paid for it, that the way they're going to just pay for it is by creating new bond referendums, if you will, or new bond structures, new bond products that they turn around and they market to other countries for the purposes of shoring. So we literally go into, in that regard, we are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we are issuing these brand new bonds to shore up health care because Alexandria thinks the government should just pay for it without realizing that we got to sell parts of America, literally in the most physical sense, for paying for this health care for those that don't want to work. And that's part of the reason that I get so angry about these conversations because there's too many people out there that pretend to be talk radio hosts or commentators or bloggers that don't understand the intricacies of how the federal funding of these programs work. They think it's just a matter of, well, we don't make enough money in this country. We don't have the right taxes. No, we will go out and we will create these bonds and these bills, these treasuries, and we will market them to other countries, and we will back those treasuries up with our very own property. Why the heck do you think that the Blasios of the world want to own more and more and more? Because on a micro scale, it happens at local levels as well. But there's too many people out there not talking about these things. Sorry.
Well, here's where I could almost come. Well, no, it's a good rant, but I'm gonna push back a little bit in this way. I almost can agree with the liberals because obviously I believe in a fair and free market is the best solution to lower prices and produce prosperity. I believe that. But I also think that as long as we are spending money, let's spend it wisely. If we're going to spend, trillions of dollars on the federal budget, then let's spend it wisely. We spent $8 trillion going into a war that we could not afford, we could not manage. It did not make us more free, and it did not make us more prosperous. We went over to Iraq.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, there is, I'm not looking for anarchy here, Tolly. There's a place for government. But, one of the things, there's a great book out there. I think it's now out of print. It's called The Working Life of a Dollar. And the basic premise of it is every dollar spent has got to create, it is the essence of a dollar to profit. And that profit might be 1%. But if you spend $1 and something more than $1 does not come back your direction, then you've essentially wasted that dollar. Now, that kind of goes into your war argument. But that's what a lot of people aren't understanding about some of the other debt that's out there. Debt in and of itself is not necessarily, despite what Dave Ramsey has to say, it's not necessarily evil. There's also good bacteria out there. But we are spending way too much money in this country on programs and policies that we don't need, ergo the war that the Alexandria Cortezes of the world simply do not grasp.
The funny thing is I kind of spoiled myself there because when you said the life of a dollar, the only thing I could really think of is 80% of U.S. cash has some cocaine on it because of trace residue. It's all passed through drug hands. That's where my mind went to, Michael. What's wrong with me?
Tolly, you are an amazing individual.
Thank you, Michael. I'm not going to go lick a dollar or anything, but I'm just saying 80% of your cash in your wallet has cocaine residue on it. That's how much drug money runs us. Bye, Michael. I need to hang up and get out of here. I've talked too much.
Thank you, Dolly. I appreciate the call. All right, guys. The heck with it. Do we want to take a break? Well, I was going to take the bottom of the hour break, but it's almost time for the end of the show break. But anyway, taking a look at Mayor de Blasio. We got a couple other stories that we're looking at here, as well as this staff story, the university staff story. Don't use the word. See, you can't even do the story if you don't use the words that they don't want you to use. Also, the White House Correspondents Association has decided to no longer have comedians come in. Yes, Michelle Wolf, you screwed it up for everybody because you are a dingbat indeed. And you're not the only dingbat comedian that's out there. But now, y'all can turn to her. Michelle Wolf broke it. She broke the Correspondents' Dinner all by herself. And now she's calling the White House Correspondents Association cowards. Hey, look, Bimbo, the White House Correspondents Association doesn't want your brand of low-grade, lowest common denominator comedic tripe. So you're out of here. We don't even talk about you. Also, we have got the Turkey Challenge prank. Apparently, it's freaking folks out. Maybe we'll get into that tomorrow, the next day. Also, judge barring the United States from enforcing Trump administration asylum ban. We've got that story on our radar. And Casey Kasem's family claims that he was murdered. That's right. Legendary DJ Casey Kasem's vicious family feud now includes allegations of murder and elder abuse and is the focus of a program coming on Saturday called 48 Hours. The ongoing battle pits Jeannie Kasem, Kasem's second wife. You might remember her from Cheers. She was actually married to, Nick Tortelli. Yeah, anyway, this is his second wife, and also the suits against his 3 children from the first marriage, and it's all been laid bare by correspondent Peter Van Sant in No Relation Van Sant, not Zant, in Saturday's episode. Kasem died in 2014 on Father's Day at the age of 82 from a Parkinson's-like disease, leaving behind a estate valued somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100 million that he had amassed by founding and voicing the internationally broadcast American Top 40 radio show and its various other subsidiaries. However, Jeannie claims that Kasem's 3 grown children conspired to trick Casey in 2007 into signing over a power of attorney, giving them control over his medical decisions, which, according to her, ultimately killed Kasem. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, you have got darkness and conspiracy, and we are done with that story. Let's go ahead and take our very last break of today. This is the 20th edition of the Heart of America show. I'm talking about November 20th, so y'all stick around. I'm going to take a real quick break, come back on the other side, mop this puppy up. I am going to ask you, however, if you've enjoyed the program today and you want to learn stuff, not just sit around and waste your time with all the other conservative tripe that's out there. You really want to learn what's going on in this country. Tell somebody about the program. I mean, we're trying to get the word out and talk to folks about what really makes things tick in this country. Sometimes we're going to go a little deeper. Sometimes we might even bore the ever-living stew out of you. But the reality of it is that what you see on your corporate news channels, they're not telling you the whole story. I mean, heck and golly gee, they don't even know the whole story. But we try to bring it to you here every single day on Heart of America with Michael Hart. Y'all stick around, coming right back on the other side.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So, before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
It's the Michael Hart Show.
Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
You're listening to Heart of America with Michael Hart right here on this here talk radio station. Check us out at the book website, theunknownamerica.com. We're going to be kicking off the Unknown America blog. And I guess it's going to be a podcast since it's not going to be a blog talk radio program as such. But it's going to be a brand new podcast that's going to come out after Thanksgiving. Already working on that. It'll dovetail off of the book Unknown America, which currently is discounted at theunknownamerica.com. If you order it through that website, it comes with a complimentary United States Constitution and will be autographed from me. Several folks have also taken us up on our bulk offer. We've had a couple of folks in the last couple of days pick up 5 of them for Christmas presents. If you go that route, it's discounted even more. And so if you have gone ahead and done that, we'll get those things. They're pretty much already on the way. For those, any orders that came in, they ship usually within about 36 hours or so. There is a Kindle version of the book. There is an Audible version of the book. There is a kids version of the book. There's a second version of the book. It's really and truly, I mean, it just takes forever. I mean, I had an entry I was working on yesterday on the life of President Zachary Taylor. The whole entry was 1 sentence long. It took me an hour and a half to verify the research I was working on for the Kindle version of the book. So we want to do everything in our power, just like we do in this program, to be as accurate as we can stand to be. So check out the book. Fascinating stuff. If you have an organization that brings people in, or you can even recommend us approaching perhaps some of the colleges, primarily here in the southeastern United States. It's certainly stuff, talking about things like, not just Treasury bills and bonds and how America gets her money, but just some of the more interesting things in this country that people are just not aware of. So that's one of the things that we're working on right now. And I appreciate you guys sticking with us. I appreciate the kind words. It is the in-depth thinkers that seem to really enjoy the program, because we can go a little on the long-form side, because, at the end of the day, you can get news reads anywhere. You can get them from Fox News, CNN. You can get them on Snapchat News. I mean, go for it. I'm not going to sit here and waste 2 hours of my life every single day doing what a chimpanzee can do, or that you can do for yourself by reading the news. The idea here is to go as long form and as deep as we possibly can. So hopefully we all learn something as we work together towards creating the nation that we all want to live in. A federal judge in San Francisco yesterday barred the Trump administration from refusing asylum to immigrants who cross the southern border illegally. Now, this is likely going to prompt a legal challenge from the White House. Trump issued a proclamation on the 9th that said anyone that crossed the southern border would be ineligible for asylum. However, U.S. District Judge John Tigar, it's probably pronounced Tiger, but it's with an A, so I'll be phonetically correct. John S. Tigar, who was nominated by President Obama in 2012 to the U.S. District Court for Northern District of California, issued a temporary restraining order after hearing arguments in San Fran. The request was made by who? Yep, the American Civil Liberties Union and the Center for Constitutional Rights, which quickly sued after President Trump issued the ban this month in response to the caravan. Now, a lawyer named Behar Azni, a lawyer for the Center for Constitutional Rights, said, individuals, this is a quote, by the way, individuals are entitled to asylum if they cross between the ports of entry. It couldn't be clearer. That's not entirely correct. If you're seeking asylum, you have to come in the country at a port of entry. But this guy is implying that anybody that comes to a port of entry is automatically granted asylum by law. Sorry, that's just not factual. An estimated 70,000 people a year claim asylum at the ports of entry, including in the Arizona desert and on the north bank of the Rio Grande in Texas. This, according to DHS, or the Department of Homeland Security. Migrants who cross illegally are generally arrested and often seek asylum or some other form of protection. However, yesterday the U.S. closed off northbound traffic for several hours at the busiest crossing with Mexico to install new security barriers and also closed one of 2 pedestrian crossings at the San Ysidro crossing in a move apparently aimed at preventing any mass rush of migrants across the border. So things are certainly heating up down south as a judge has barred. Now, there'll be another judge. The White House will seek confirmation from another judge on a higher court. So that story is not going to leave us anytime soon. We're going to take our University of Don'ts and capital letters story and put it right over here because it's just too funny. I want to revisit that again sometime a little bit later on in the week. And finally, the turkey challenge prank is freaking out parents everywhere. It's a new trend called the turkey challenge, and it's taken over social media with people, primarily younger people, texting their parents and grandparents asking how to cook a 25-pound turkey in a microwave. Yeah, the idea is to freak out mom and dad with your stupidity. This one parent, the only thing that came to my mind was, who the hell is going to marry you? And one also, I was joking with my family and texted them how long to microwave a whole turkey for. My mom freaked out, but she didn't even call me to discuss. She just bought a ham and overnighted it from Miami to Memphis. This joke went extremely well for me. And so all across the land, moms and dads are, in fact, falling for the turkey challenge from their youngsters who are now having their worst fears confirmed that in far too many instances, little Johnny and Sally are sometimes as ignorant as moms and dads suspected they might be. That's it for us. We're going to bug out of here. Check us out online at michaelhartshow.com if you didn't listen to the program via that vehicle. Also, check out The Unknown America. It's a great way to find out more about the book and order a copy or two for your reading enjoyment. It's also, if you have young people in your life that are ignorant enough to microwave a turkey, this book will give them enough insights into American history that maybe will inspire them to work on their IQ. Also, if you are listening via the Blog Talk platform, although this audio does originate there or through that platform, some of you are listening by going to the michaelhartshow.com and then clicking on the link at the top and then transferring over to Blog Talk. If you are doing that, then please follow the program. We're not going to be coming after you with a bunch of emails or anything. It's just our way of letting you know what's coming on the show each and every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Michael Hart Show, as well as on the on Facebook, the YouTube channel with the video is going to be coming up in probably a couple of weeks, because right now my main focus is getting the Unknown America podcast actually up on its feet as fast as possible so we can help to continue to educate people across the land about what is really going on in this country. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. We're going to bug out of here and be back with you at 8 o'clock in the morning Central Time, 9 Eastern. Please tell somebody about the program if you've learned anything. And if you are interested in helping support us, remember, there's a Patreon page for the program where you can contribute whatever you want to contribute to help keep us on the air and pay for the ever-expanding bandwidth, and drop your emails to michael@heartofamerica.net. That's michael@heartofamerica.net. We would appreciate all of your support and staying in touch with us as well. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 8. You've been listening to Heart of America with Michael Hart. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye now.